'Cause I'm a million different people from one day to the next. I can't change my mold. No, 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 no. What's up, everybody? Intellectual nihilists are so silly. Like, look at you! You let sitting in pain for seconds and minutes let you give up on the beautiful appreciation of hours and days. You paper hands pansy. And yes, I know, I'm weak, I'm lame, I too crash out. I'm a freak, I'm a creep, I'm a weirdo, what the hell am I doing here? I don't belong here. Listen, it happens. This time I wasn't making my pillow all soggy with tears. I just got overwhelmed and accidentally fell into the pit. It happens. Excuse my tardedness. We'll try not to make it a regular event. Because I'm doing a lot better mentally ever since starting the show. Thanks, guys. I could get 0 views. Even my haters, you know, you help me out at the end of the day. I look back on my video from a week ago and I got like 600, 700 views. And I can't help but think it's because I talked about null alting in Sneed chat. Listen, can you guys like chill? Can you guys look more into the macro? Like, I vented on this show about it, which is a therapy session for free. Okay? I needed to do that. But the people obsessing about Null all the time, whether they hate him so much or they love him so much that they want to rush out and attack people to defend him, you're not helping. You're not helping yourself. You're not helping the macro situation. Like, Null's bipolar, yeah. He can be mean as a poorly trained pit bull at times, yeah. But take a deep breath and think about all the things that he's allowing normal people to do. How it raises community awareness of problem individuals and equipping ignorant souls with the wisdom to tackle repeating archetypal problems. I've said this for years, both in person and online. I just wish he, like, I'm serious, I'm gonna get into a serious criticism. I wish he wasn't paywalling options on the site that used to be for everyone. He's got to employ guile, not greed. If he wants to, the operator tax, okay? If I'm lurking on the site, I want to be able to see if a user has 2,000 posts and only 500 positive points. But that abysmal ratio only shows up as positive for non-subbed members. And I'm sorry, but this is 100% true. This, well, at least from what I saw like a year ago or so. The subbed region of the site is objectively awful. Until they change how it was prior, it is objectively awful. It's better to not have access to that part of the website because you can follow all the rules and still get voted out of being able to access it by the single worst users on the site and a few good ones like TV's Adam West and Buner Mate. You know. But it's false advertising, and it's legitimately the slimy armpit of the website. There's not a worse part of the website when it comes to the inter-user interactions on that, in that particular part. Like one of the, like probably the main part is just where they make fun of people who aren't able to access that part of the website. Like you can do that in DMs, and they get so bent out of shape. I come in there, I go, oh, okay, so I'm subbed. I can say whatever I want here. It says it right on the rules. No. If people start screaming and crying and getting upset that their feelings get hurt, you'll get pushed out of that part of the free speech forum in the most free speech, like, oh, you paid for it, here's your VIP room pass. No, you'll get kicked out of there. Duh. I mean, that's kind of the same for everything, but they should at least be a little bit more honest in that particular part of the website. You know, if you tick off the people that sit here all day and get off on being able to make fun of people in a part of the site that's not accessible to people who don't pay money to reach it. As in, DMs can be accessible if just one person in the DM like invites somebody and that person can invite a bunch of other people. So what you're saying in your gay ops that you're doing in the DMs, which is very frequent on Kiwi farms, can get proliferated. Not in the particular paid part of the website. And it is the mentality built up around that. And the main reason why I'm critical, one of two main reasons why I'm critical of Trombonista is the fact that she allows that to happen in that part of the website. The second one is the fact, and I'll bring this up during the tier list, which is coming soon, very soon. And I'm 90% done with my anti-Zionism special too, so expect that in the next couple of days. Is exactly what I was just talking about, the fact that she activated as a Zionist after sometime after October 7th. And like, the more you study that, the more you understand that Jewish people are being terrorized by the state of Israel to jump on board that. And the stupider ones think that it's the most powerful and burgeoning force in I don't know the proper qualifying word for it. The Jewosphere. The Jewosphere! But it's not. It really isn't. The most powerful part is the people that have integrated into the local communities. We have our laws, we have our rules. You know, if you want to come help us over on Saturday, we'll give you a little scratch for it. But otherwise, we're no different than you, and we're going to help your area, and you can help us if you want. We're all interacting. We're a team. My life isn't worth more than your life. Our children can play together and speak the same language and learn the same values. That's the important part. But after October 7th, you see a lot of people who you saw before, who you wouldn't have been able to tell are Jewish, now like really boisterously loud about their Jewish faith and seemingly kind of forming a bit of a specter of Zionism, whereas previously there was none. Like in the case of Tramanista, not, limiting the amount of pro-Zionist posts in her, whereas the same exact behavior from anybody else would get put on notice for, spastic behavior. That's the strangest part about her. One of the best moderators on the entire site is the fact that her behavior seems to be metered based on personal values. And like, as I have advocated that Null should try and find some form of system to pay fair his moderators before. That's kind of a dumb conceptualization, but at the end of the day, like, the people who do it for free do it for more personal reasons, not for effective altruistic reasons, which is something you kind of want to avoid anyways, because that's the evolution of the hippie movement, and it's mostly built on objective, pseudo-empathetic, selfish reasons. So, yeah. That part of the website that I was just talking about in the paid for only area is kind of like a Politburo for gay ops. I think that's a good way of describing that. And the gay ops, as I think Null's actually taken steps to reduce the amount of gay ops on his websites, especially by preventing people from, like, allowing people to open up their interpersonal block list and, like, prevent users from harassing them if they haven't been marked with a person of interest badge or something like that, which ultimately prevents people from fighting because they have differences in opinions, which then spirals into factional warfare and then civil war inside of your own open, large tent, free speech website. And that's very, very smart. And that's one of the reasons why you gotta look at Null, you gotta look at the long-term ramifications of his behavior, and then stop getting so upset about short-term stupid things. Like, take it from me. It is so much better when you're interacting with him in your own mind to take a step back from his day-to-day behavior and take a look at the long-term scheme of things, the work which every man should be remembered for. And keep in mind that most artists throughout history had some level of mental eccentricity. And that is exactly what American exceptionalism is all about at the end of the day. British people use the term as so diversely. Basically, it shortens to as it is, as, or as has been, as. And they just use the word as, and it shortens up the sentence tremendously. That is how you can tell that you're dealing with a real British person. With real British, and London people won't do that. Like real Mercian hours. New Masonic French game, once again proving that the French are unparalleled in style. Clear Obscure 32, was it? Something like that. It is le JRPG. In the game, you have to find the lady and stop the gomage. Baguette. It is important to note, though, that the French, since the 1970s, because of the intellectuals like Michel Foucault, are canonically pedophiles. They were strutting like the good guys under de Gaulle, and I to get it, but not now. Okay? You guys gotta get your stuff together. And I'm serious about that. It is terrifying. It is awful. You remember that movie Cuties, where it had like child strippers, and it was a big thing on the internet for a while? I, of course, never saw it because I have a soul. You know, I have red blood beating through my chest. I'm a man. I don't like to take advantage of children. I like to make children, right? I'm a man, like Alex Jones. That came out of France, and that's a peak, tip of the iceberg, if you will, of their particular new 50-year culture, which needs to go. It needs to go. And as you might know, Macron, his husband, actually took advantage of Macron when he was like 14 during like a school play. This 40-year-old, is just like, that one. That's, you guys gotta work on that. There's so many evil entities in modern history that carry the name Central Committee or Central Agency, and I think a lot of people misinterpret that as centrism. But that's just the two wings, one bird model of politics. I say the one who tries to stretch their understanding to all corners of the spectrum is the true centrist. Instead of buried beneath the weight of establishment, they sit atop a peak of understanding, and it's a constant active work to get there. Dennis Prager and Pope Francis are both part of an old guard of silver-tongued boomers that used the sympathy and empathy ingrained in Western nations to support systems that cycle towards the utter destruction of the common man and his culture. And even more important, they got the people most primed to stand against such revolutions to direct their hatred towards communal systems, further dividing them. This is likely the exact process used in book clubs and political circles leading up to the advent of communism. And this is a terrible, gut-wrenching point, but it's like how a lot of the school shooters in America could have been, in a different timeline, our best soldiers. In a drastically different timeline. We don't need them doing that to a school overseas. But imagine some of those people with those large body counts, getting sicked against, ISIS or something like that. They could take out like 15 and then not get taken out themselves and stuff like that. That's something that you need. And those are getting burned through by our FBI. Yes, it is the FBI grooming and putting guns in the hands of these people. Like crooks in Pennsylvania that tried to shoot Trump. Him too. The FBI and BlackRock, and even when the FBI is no longer allowed to do it, you'll still have private companies working on it. I'm not saying Blackwater and Eric Prince paramilitary would probably be about that, since they already just take disillusioned middle-aged men and then put them into paramilitary situations. But like the really bad ones, BlackRock, Blackstone, Vanguard, those companies that only focus on money and are monopolizing all the businesses and the real estate in the country, they will 100% continue that process. Likely the same minds behind both factions. All right, so a lot of the minds, like Lenin, could have been phenomenal scientists, but wasted their lives on a sham. And that's the exact same problem that we're dealing with, is like, we really got to cut this out. And I'm going to go into extensive detail on anti-Zionism, special part 2, on the history of communism. And that's going to be good. I've never in my life known a real dyed-in-the-wool communist. Never in my life. they seem to only exist in places like Portland. And Portland has underground tunnels called the Shanghai tunnels that secretly like traffic human beings, or at least they did 100 years ago, over to Chiang Kai-shek's China to be slaves in fields. So Portland, Oregon has a interesting and deep history. No pun intended. I get the Indian hate at times, but you must understand, as our medical system is, their doctors are raised and molded with far better standards of care. Half of my doctors have been Indian. They've all been good. You know, the one time an Indian did me wrong is when he recommended a vaccine that hurt me real bad. He was like looking at the pamphlet and he's just like, there you go. He wasn't super like, you gotta take this. Oh, you're gotta, don't you think about the society? And he just handed me a pamphlet. And my orthodontist, who was an Indian guy, did tremendous work, and he really like made my life like 3 times better. So that's why originally when I first heard about H-1Bs, I was just like, oh, those guys? I will jump in front of those guys. I'll jump in front of the train. No. They mean the guys taking everybody's job in the coding sector and the IT sectors. That's what they mean. It's all fun and game for Big Balls over in Doge until he gets replaced with Large Raj. And that's my base to touch from, but here's a pragmatic truth. If you have a caste system that's been pointed inward for 10,000 years, and you have Brahmins who believe the circle of samsara has destined them as the victors without trial, you will struggle to thrive. And that's why I believe India has always struggled to thrive. It was the Bahmanis of the northern Pakistan region, descended essentially from Tamerlane, if I remember correctly, that made urbanized, that's a good word, urbanized India. And then you got Britain coming in, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. India is an ancient civilization. Ancient. And I think they've got a tremendous amount of wisdom, but their caste system is not something to look at. Their, pyramid-shaped caste system is not something to look at with that's Christianity is just the best, baby. It's just the best. It's just the best. Islam may have come later on, but it is reverting, just as the Talmud reverts a lot of the wisdom of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and David. Thanks a lot, Solomon, you selfish little prick. Like the Indian caste system is not, and the Muslim system is not what you want. You don't want racially based hierarchies. You don't want hierarchies internally pointed inwards towards your own society. You want people to have opportunity to grow and become stronger and better on the entire world stage, and that's exactly what Christendom provides. The thing about Anglicanism is that, like, it was no joke. Like, kids were raised in the church. They went to school, like, to learn their reading, writing, and arithmetic, not just Sunday school, in the church. They came back and they did church in the church. And like, you have this entire society that's raised with pointed towards veneration of their lords and ladies. Yes, so it has this weird caste system already. Entire culture, though, steeped in Christianity, like deeply, and with an understanding of Christianity too. That's exactly why the road to hell is paved with good intentions. That's Britain's catchphrase. And you'd rather be under the British than a lot of other people throughout history. Let me tell you that. The British will not be castrating your young boys and putting them into harems like the Ottomans. Okay? Okay. Just so that's clear. Okay, I'm Irish. I'm not going to defend the British too much, but at the end of the day, I do have a good amount of respect in my chest for them. Here's the thing about beauty. It takes an immense amount of help to thrive in nature and in humanity. You need mirrors. You don't need them in many cases, but tools help a lot. You need people to protect you and hype you up, and to be there when you fall down, to provide good nutrients when you're young, and to give you the tools to provide them for yourself into adulthood. And that's there's 3 or 4 different factors of support involved in the last point. If your eyesight is bad, you need help with glasses to see when you groom yourself. You need a bunch of things in nature for what you need to make your skin beautiful, your hair beautiful. Clean skin with salicylic acid, protect it from sun damage with aloe, help your hair, shiny and lock in moisture. You need tools to trim your nails and curate your hair in certain areas and not others. You need clean water. You need protection from the elements, from insects, a society that discourages random violence. There are so many ways that morality creates beauty. In this way, too, do societies propagate beauty, and why the wage-slave mentality of labor, which is the foundation of all modernity, as a political force, not a force for communal good, not just labor as in the muscle working, but labor as in the political philosophy, is ugly and produces ugly things. But don't get it twisted. A lot of outwardly pointed beauty, a lot of capitalism is also labor. It's the same flip coin over a different face, dressed up with more outwardly pointed beauty, but still composed of the same ugly parasitic philosophy communism is. Back when I watched Jordan Peterson, who is like a crypto-Stalinist, who has like Soviet Union art all over his house and has a very strange mentality about things, but simultaneously has lauded Solzhenitsyn in his past, and so like has a very deep and complex understanding of these things. Back when I watched Jordan Peterson, I mostly watched his older stuff, pre-Xanax Coma. And it was really good. I loved his biblical series. I loved his dissection of Lion King and Pinocchio. But when he came back from the Xanax coma, he was mostly boring and placid in between bouts of paranoid schizophrenia. Directed against everybody and anybody, and like a black mold in his house was gonna kill him and stuff like that, not the tremendous amount of drugs that he shoveled down his gullet. Genuine paranoia that is very dissociated from reality. The word schizophrenia is such a complex word, and we really shouldn't use it lightly, because it legitimately means the separation and cross-chatter between the two lobes of the brain, which we have come to understand might actually mean dissociation and compartmentalization of various parts of our brain, to like 24 different parts of your brain and stuff like that, and the ability to move them around kind of like puzzle pieces to find the right way of doing things, and being very sensitive to having your mental health disrupted with a big, push in the wrong direction. I think that's closer to what schizophrenia is, but paranoia is almost always bad. Universally bad. Defensiveness, good. Paranoia, bad. I couldn't remember the guy's name until I thought of Harvey Weinstein, and then the Groomer Rapist Association triggered something in my brain. Kevin Spacey. Dripping with disgusting energy. But likely a real stereotype of what a plantation owner would act like and think. Minus the gay rape, maybe? Unless Tariq Nasheed is really, really on point and buck breaking never stopped. But yeah, incredibly contemptible man. All right, y'all. That's good for today. Everyone, that's good. Cheers.